Have you ever heard of an American soldier who defected to North Korea? It's not your everyday story, but it's the tale of James Joseph Dresnok, a man whose life trajectory would take an unexpected turn. Born in 1941 in a small town in Virginia, Dresnok's early life was marked by a series of hardships. His parents divorced when he was young, leading him to spend his childhood in foster homes. But amidst the chaos of his early years, one thing was constant: his dream of joining the military. In his late teens, Dresnok saw his dream become a reality when he enlisted in the U.S. Army. His first deployment took him far from his home, to the front lines of the Korean War. But the harsh realities of war were a far cry from the heroic dreams of his youth. His first marriage fell apart, and he found himself facing punishment for forging passes to leave his base. The year was 1962. Facing a court-martial, Dresnok did something unthinkable. He fled his post, not just from his base but from his country. He defected to North Korea, crossing the heavily fortified demilitarized zone under the cover of darkness. His decision was not a spur-of-the-moment act of desperation, but a calculated move. Dresnok believed that the North Koreans would send him to the Soviet Union, where he hoped to seek asylum, but things didn't go as planned. Instead of the Soviet Union, Dresnok found himself in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. With his life in the U.S. Army behind him, Dresnok took a step that shocked the world. Imagine this: a U.S. soldier, disillusioned with his life, crossing the heavily fortified border into North Korea. It's August 1962, and Private James Joseph Dresnok is about to make a decision that will change his life forever. As a young man serving in the U.S. Army, his path seemed set. But Dresnok felt a deep-seated dissatisfaction, a discontent that would eventually compel him to do the unimaginable. On the day of his defection, Dresnok found himself alone at his post, his mind teeming with thoughts of his past and the life he was living. The 38th parallel, that formidable line of demarcation between the two Koreas, loomed ahead, a symbol of division, a symbol of conflict. But for Dresnok, it represented a beacon of escape. Dresnok had his reasons for taking such a drastic step. His life in America had been marred by hardship. Born into an impoverished family and later abandoned, he sought solace in the military, hoping it would provide the stability he yearned for. But his expectations were met with disappointment. His dissatisfaction with the U.S. government was profound. He felt betrayed by the system, a system he believed was built on inequity and injustice. He had been court-martialed once for forging passes, and now, faced with a second court-martial for a similar offense, he feared the punishment that awaited him, so he made the choice. He walked across the 38th parallel, leaving behind his uniform, his identification, and his past. He stepped into the unknown, into a country that was an enigma to the world outside. He crossed over, not knowing what lay ahead, only that it was a life far removed from the one he had known. A defection like Dresnok's was not just unusual, it was unheard of. He was stepping into enemy territory, into a world that was diametrically opposed to everything he had known, but for Dresnok, it was a step into a life he hoped would be different. In North Korea, Dresnok found a life far removed from the one he had known. What does it mean to live in one of the world's most secretive countries as a defector? Well, for James Dresnok, it meant a life that was, in many ways, stranger than fiction. After his defection, Dresnok was given a home, a job, and even a wife. The North Korean government arranged a marriage between Dresnok and a Romanian woman, Donna Bombay, who had allegedly been abducted by the North Korean government. Together they had two sons, Ted and James Jr., both of whom grew up as North Koreans, speaking Korean and considering themselves loyal to the regime. Dresnok's day job was as an English teacher, where he used his command of the language to help train the elite in North Korea. But it was his side gig that really caught the world's attention. Dresnok became a star of North Korean cinema, playing the role of the villainous American in propaganda films. His towering height, broad shoulders, and deep voice made him the perfect embodiment of the Western enemy in the eyes of North Korean film directors. But despite this seemingly comfortable life, Dresnok's existence in North Korea was far from idyllic. His marriage to Donna was reportedly unhappy, and he was kept under constant surveillance by the North Korean authorities. He was, in effect, both a guest and a prisoner in his adopted country. His every move was watched, his actions scrutinized, and his loyalty continually tested. Dresnok himself, however, maintained until his death that he never regretted his decision to defect. He insisted that he was treated well and that he felt more at home in North Korea than he ever did in America. But we may never know the full truth about Dresnok's life in North Korea, as his story is shrouded in the secrecy and propaganda of one of the world's most enigmatic regimes. But Dresnok's life in North Korea was not without its challenges. The life of a defector is never simple, and Dresnok's was no exception. The life of James Dresnok, the US soldier who defected to North Korea, was shrouded in controversy. His decision to cross the 38th parallel, the line separating North and South Korea, was seen by many as a betrayal of his country. Allegations swirled that he had become an agent for the North Korean government, a puppet in their propaganda machine. Dresnok's appearances in Western media did little to quell these rumors. He was often presented as a traitor, a man who had turned his back on his home in favor of an enemy state. Some even suggested that he had been brainwashed, that he was merely parroting the words of his North Korean captors. But Dresnok insisted otherwise. He maintained that he had made the decision to defect of his own free will, that he had not been coerced or manipulated. He argued that he was happier in North Korea, that he had found a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never experienced in the United States. In 2016, Dresnok passed away, leaving behind a life that was as intriguing as it was contentious. His death sparked a flurry of reactions, a testament to the enduring fascination and controversy surrounding his story. Some mourned his passing while others saw it as the end of a traitor's life. Even in death, Dresnok remained a divisive figure. There were those who saw him as a man who had been led astray, a victim of his own disillusionment and the North Korean government's manipulation. But there were also those who saw him as a man who had willingly betrayed his country, who had chosen to align himself with an enemy state. James Dresnok remains a controversial figure, a man who chose an unthinkable path. His life continues to spark debate, a testament to the complexity of his decisions and the enduring impact of his defection. James Dresnok, a traitor, a pawn, or a man simply seeking a different life? This question sets the stage for our reflection on the life of a man whose choices continue to perplex us. Dresnok's life was a saga of crossing borders, both literal and figurative. His defection to North Korea, crossing the 38th parallel, was a decision that marked him for life. It's a decision that has led to a multitude of interpretations. To some, he was a traitor, a man who turned his back on his country and flag. To others, he was a pawn, used by the North Korean regime for their propaganda machine. And yet, there are those who see Dresnok as a man who simply sought a different life. A man fed up with the constraints of his homeland, who saw in North Korea a chance for a fresh start. It's a perspective that, while controversial, offers a more nuanced view of a life that was anything but ordinary. James Dresnok's life raises profound questions about the nature of loyalty and freedom. What does it mean to be loyal to one's country? Is it a blind adherence to the flag, or is it the freedom to question, to dissent, to seek out new horizons? And what does it mean to be free? Is freedom the ability to live without fear of persecution, or is it the pursuit of a life lived on one's own terms, however unconventional they may be? The nature of defection, too, is a theme that Dresnok's life brings into sharp focus. Is it a betrayal, a political act, or a deeply personal decision? Is it a step towards freedom, or a leap into the unknown? These are questions without easy answers, questions that Dresnok's life forces us to confront. In the end, Dresnok's life serves as a reminder of the complex realities behind the headlines. His story, as controversial as it is compelling, continues to challenge our perceptions of loyalty, freedom, and the very nature of defection.